Hey y'all, it's me, CheesyPaninie. So one afternoon while I was scrubbing the dead skin cells off of my arm with a loofah, I thought, the original Pallet Town houses used to be purple and white. Why did it turn red and white in the anime and the newer games? And then I'm like, maybe because the color is too close to Lavender Town? But then I saw this. Lavender Town wasn't even lavender in this version. It just had like a really tiny portion that was kind of lavender. Maybe it's just my own bias of the color purple, but I've always liked the combination of purple, light blue, and white in that part of the game, and I was honestly disappointed to see the newer versions of Pallet Town. The original colors paired with the iconic music just felt really homey to me, And yes, I know that the actual colors of the game in the Game Boy wasn't even that colorful, but I still really like this combination, so I decided to do my own version of Pallet Town in Terraria. Now I used the original as my guide, but also took some ideas from the other versions of Pallet Town. So my goal for this build is to somewhat retain the color palettes of light blue, purple, and white. I really wanted to do the large horizontal planks for walls like in the game, and unfortunately the only ones that closely fit the look was boreal wood walls. But you couldn't really paint it really white, and it just ended up looking gray. So instead of that, I used white dynasty walls and sail alternatively. For windows, I kind of wanted to emulate the windows in the game that were square with a triangular purple accent, and I initially used the purple gem spark for this, but realized that it got too dark when it was actuated, so I decided to just use white gem spark walls and paint the upper left square with purple, then place actuated glass on top of it to create that triangular shape. And as much as I'd love to do light purple roofs in this build like in the game, I was really dead set on using team blocks for the roofs because of the pattern on the Pokémon lab, so I didn't bother scrolling through the other blocks. When I saw this, I'm like, yep, this is the one. Also, if you see the original, there's this purple rectangle here, and I kind of just assumed it must be a roof. But then I saw this version of Pallet Town and realized it was just a line. But I was already digging this look, so I just went with it. Now, I didn't want this build to be purely exterior. I wanted the doors of the houses to go somewhere. So I copy-pasted the house so I could make the interior the same size as the exterior. I actually found that it's kind of tricky to do the design of the interior because the first draft I made of the house was a lot larger, so I had to improvise with some details and only copy some parts of the house in the game. Okay, let's see the interior of the house in the game. We have some bookcases, a TV, a table with chairs with a flower pot in the middle, some windows, and a staircase leading to the second floor. The second floor has a computer, a table, a bed, a TV with a game console, a plant, and of course, the windows with stairs and... Wait a second. Where the heck are those stairs supposed to lead to? The wall? Hold on. Why is there only one bed? Does Ash sleep on the same bed as his mom? And you just can't simply give me the argument that, hey, maybe they can only afford one bed. Heh, yeah, right, because a bed is more expensive than a computer, 2 TVs, and a game console. Then again, maybe that's where all the money went. That's just bad parenting, Mrs. Ash's mom. You have all this space and you can't even give yourself your own bed. Unless, maybe the mom does sleep in the bed and the kid sleeps on the floor or the table? Oh, I know. Maybe because the kid is going off on an adventure, she decided to just get rid of his bed so the kid doesn't have a reason to come back home and give up on his quest to becoming a Pokemon master. Damn, his mom is hardcore. Fortunately, or maybe unfortunately, I'm not very hardcore, so in my version of Pallet Town, I'm gonna give them both their own rooms plus a bathroom and a kitchen. Cause I feel a lot better when I know they have an actual place to pee and poo. I'm putting the kitchen on the first floor behind this door, a staircase at the right side, and gem sparks for light. I'm putting a bookcase over here, which I'm actually going to replace later because I realized that this one was a little too bright. And if you're curious about the TV, I'm using the painting Finding Gold and just put a couple of ebonstone brick walls behind it so it would look like it's placed on a table. And I don't know about you guys, but it's kind of weird to have the TV on the floor like that because, you know, you have to look down all the time when you watch, and that's just gonna be bad for your neck. And I needed to place the switch somewhere near the teleporter, so I just decided to place one of them above the TV and just kind of pretend that they were one of those old school TV cable boxes. Give the mom extra channels to watch since her son's leaving her all alone in the house to go off and catch Zubats and stuff. And then I just put the table and chairs, potted flower, and one window on this side. Now for the second floor, I've put 3 doors for rooms, and I've decided to put the plant by the corridor instead so it doesn't look too empty. Okay, time to make the rooms. We can't really make the rooms the way I did in my small house video, wherein the second interior is the same size as the space in the first interior because all the items won't be able to fit. So what I did was just make the room size as big as I want it to be. And I still kind of want the room to make sense and feel a little realistic. So what I did was place the door and teleporter entrance at the end of the room and sort of pretend that the camera just changed its angle. This way it doesn't really matter how long the room is, it just needs to have the same height as the first interior. The first room I'm making is Ash's, or the main character's room. So here I'm putting the TV with a game console, a closet, and a bed. A pretty standard room. The second room is the bathroom with a bathtub, a space for shampoos, soaps, and toiletries, a sink, and a toilet. Now let's not forget the toilet paper. The third room, which is the mom's room, is pretty similar to the first with just a few changes. I made this one a little more feminine, placing more purple on it and placing a dresser. For the kitchen, I'm just going to make the perspective the same as the other rooms, but the ceiling is a little higher. I'm not gonna make it too fancy and just put a stove with a vent, knives, cabinets, the dresser, which will act as the sink, a fridge, and a shelf for plates and cups. Now I'll be moving on to the next building, which is the Oak Pokemon Research Lab, where you will get your first starter Pokemon. Depending on which version you played, you can either get Pikachu or the choice between Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Charmander. Now when I played the game when I was little, sorry, I meant younger, since I'm still kind of little, so it defeats the purpose of the narrative. Anyway, I mostly played Pokemon Yellow because I wanted to have Pikachu following me around, and the sprites in Yellow looked kind of cuter and cooler looking and a lot more similar to the Pokemon anime than their counterparts in Pokemon Red and Green or Blue. But if I were to pick a Pokemon from the 3 starters, I would definitely choose Bulbasaur because it's cute and I really like its movesets, especially the skill that lets you drain life from your enemies. I always thought that was pretty handy and kind of OP in a way. Anyways, for the Pokemon Lab, I just took the previous house I made and did a couple of edits to make it look as similar as I could to the original one. And if you look closer, some parts of the house had the long horizontal lines while some parts had bricks so I decided to incorporate that and made ice brick accents. And yeah, it's kind of weird that it's not symmetrical, but I just really want to copy the same number of windows as the original, so I did. For the interior of the Pokemon lab, the floor was purple and the walls of the interior had this somewhat gradient effect where it faded upwards, so I did that with the walls here as well. The original also had a much longer room than the other houses, and I could have made the top part of the room another room, but I decided to treat this top part as an elevated loft of sorts and placed the stairs in between the bookshelves. I also added another room over here that will act as a lounge or staff room for the researchers. And yes, there will be a bathroom. I want my staff to have healthy bowels and bladders. I used glass doors for this because I really liked how it looked against the wall paint, and I have a feeling I'll use this effect again in some other build. For the Pokeballs, I just used silly pink and green balloons because they really hold paint super well. And of course we can't forget about the trash can over here, which really doesn't do anything or serve a purpose, but it just needs to be there. It's always been there. Even though I accidentally posted the version of this without the trash can on Twitter anyway, the game also had signs over here, which seemed like really important posters, but it only really just tells you how to open the menu and where to find the save option. I didn't bother to place the extra table with the Pokédex here because I don't even know what item to use as a Pokédex, and it just felt too cluttered to me to have an extra table there, so I just retained the computer and added a chair. Besides, having one big table just for the Pokeballs are fine, but having another one just for the Pokédex is a little extra, you have to admit. Let's just pretend Professor Oak has it stored somewhere in his computer desk. For the lounge, I made the size of the room the same size as the space of the first interior, unlike Ash's house. I had a small bathroom at the leftmost side of the room and filled the rest of the room with sofas, tables, and chairs, a fridge, and some cupboards where they can store their food. For the final house, which is Gary's house, I pretty much did a copy pasta of Ash's house and just changed a few details here and there, like changing some of the colors or some of the furniture. I also put the Sky Guardian painting in here because in the original game the house had a town map and the painting kind of looked like it had a white path, and I thought it would be perfect. I also found it kind of weird that both houses in the original game were the same size, but if you go inside Gary's house, he's just straight up doesn't have a second floor. I mean, Gary's room isn't really that important to the game anyway, and you'd be adding extra stuff in that really won't matter in the big picture. But since I am making my own version and I just wanted it to look more complete, I'm giving him the second floor with the same rooms as Ash's house. Now that we've basically finished everything we need to with the houses, it's time to do the landscaping. Now for this, I like the idea of the houses being in different elevations and they're connected together with a pathway. I'm using flesh walls for the grass and pearl sandstone walls for the path. I based the ground colors on this version of Pallet Town. For the trees, I made 3 different sizes and versions of pine trees and reused 2 other pine trees that I made for a previous video, so I don't have to just make a new one every time. There's this part in the game that leads to the sea, and there were some pools surrounding the whole town, so I decided to incorporate that here, making some sort of fence and a small pool of water. I used the 3 colors white, light blue, and purple to make it in theme with the original game. I also used ice flow wallpaper for the walls of the pool of water because it reminded me a lot of the texture of the water in the game. Then I added a simple white bridge here just so people can pass through. To make the path walkable, I placed a couple of blue brick platforms painted deep teal and line the edges I don't want people to walk on with pine tree blocks. I also painted deep teal. On the other hand, for the parts that I don't want to be blocked and edges that I just want to shape, I used pearl sandstone blocks painted deep teal. That's right, I am following Chaos's footprints of worshipping sandstone blocks. For the foreground, or rather the straight line here that's walkable, I used layers of pearl sandstone, then hardened pearl sand, then pearl sand, then dirt. The reason for this is because pearl sandstone only merges with the hardened pearl sand, which merges with pearl sand, which merges with dirt. And the reason why I used the pearl sand or hollow versions of this with all of them is because I was after a specific shade of teal. And if I used any sand or sandstone which was different, like for example the regular sand, the pearl sand will eventually convert itself to pearl sand anyway, so to avoid that, I just made all of them of a similar biome, while also trying to make sure it can't convert the other materials I used. Now for the icing on the cake, the final embellishments, I wanted to fill this place up with flowering plants. And at first I just wanted to place strange plants everywhere like my previous video, but I just felt like the colors just didn't merge well with the rest of the build, and even if I painted it a certain color, they didn't pop out the way I wanted them to. They just seemed out of place somehow. Then after some experimentation, I found a combination that I really liked. Green strange plants plus a purple strange plant painted white plus silk rope painted deep violet. It actually somehow reminded me of the colors of bougainvilleas, and I thought it was perfect. I don't know if there are actual plants that are exactly like that, but it looks nice and it works, and that's that. I actually considered placing tree silhouettes here as well, but decided against it because there was already so much going on and I didn't want to overdo it. After that's done, I get rid of all the actuators because I'm about to do some wiring and I don't want those blocks to get activated by mistake. This is one of the instances where having a cutter is better than having the grand design, because you can just use your smart cursor by pressing Ctrl and just spam the cutter and automatically use it on the nearest actuators. The wiring isn't really that complicated for this build, it's just a matter of connecting the teleporters together but making sure that they're far enough that it doesn't break immersion. I didn't want any part of the other rooms to be seen when you're in the other rooms. After that's done, I cleaned up all the unnecessary junk I placed on the map and made a few fixes here and there and placed the NPCs in their own boxes off screen. And there you go, my own version of Pallet Town. I was really excited about this build and I really enjoyed making it because it gave me somewhat of a nostalgia trip, and I actually opened up the game just so I could cross-reference it with my build. Pokémon was one of my most favorite shows ever when I was a kid. I even had posters of the 151 Pokémon taped to the wall beside my bed, and I knew them all by heart. Probably not completely in order, but if you show me any of the first generation 151 Pokémon, I can definitely name them. I even collected cards. Not the official Pokemon card game type of cards though, unfortunately. Though I really wish I did though, cause I absolutely enjoyed the Game Boy version of that game. If you ask me which Pokemon I liked the most, it would be Vulpix. Not only is he a really cute fox Pokemon, I also really loved the episode Pokemon Fashion Flash, and the message of that episode really resonated with me. There was this Pokemon beauty contest and everyone went and dolled up their Pokemon, and some were given clothes that were a little too much, and I think some of them even had makeup on, and then there's just this one Pokemon that came in with nothing extra, just a really well brushed fur. I don't know, I guess I just really liked the message of less is more, be yourself and all that. Though I gotta say, Alolan Vulpix is such a cutie pie and I love it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching all the way up to this point, and I hope you like this build. And if you do, please give this video a thumbs up, share it around to people who you think would find it interesting, and if you have any suggestions for my next builds, let me know down in the comments below. I might not do all of them, but I do keep your suggestions in mind when I'm planning. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon if you want to be alerted when I have a new video, because as of now, I don't have a fixed upload schedule yet. And before I end this video, I just want to thank my patrons Patrick Crowhurst and Sean Gizianowski. I hope I said that right. I'm sorry if I didn't. I just wanted to express my gratitude because you guys went one step further and pledged to my Patreon, even though I didn't have any rewards yet or anything like that. Thank you so much. So for now, I'm just gonna go do my thing and you guys do your thing, and I'll see you guys later. Take it easy, stay cheesy.